Hi, everyone, and welcome to Our Disabled Future, a series where disabled voices lead the way. I'm your host, Nico. It is a good day for disability inclusion. Each day, during Disability Pride Month and beyond, I'm amplifying real disabled stories, where we are, where we want to go, and how the heck we're going to get there. Together, I hope. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Kip. Let's dive in. Hi, Kip. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Nico. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Of course. So tell us about yourself and about your disabled life.
Perfect. My name is Kip Roth. I'm a civil rights attorney, public speaker, and I work in real estate as well. I was born with what's called phocomelia, and I think it's either Greek or Latin. I believe it's Greek, though. In Greek, that means flipper arms, and that's exactly what this was. At one point, well, excuse me, at birth, I was born with a flat fused flipper and no fingers. I didn't have fingers, elbows, or thumbs. Fortunately, there was a rudimentary bone structure inside of the flipper. So they had a bunch of surgeries and they split the fingers out and apart and gave me fingers. They took one of the fingers off, moved it up to give me an opposable thumb. I don't recall the name of that procedure, but all of this surgery took place at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I was incredibly fortunate because in the late 50s, they had the late 50s, early 60s, they had the antibiotics revolution. They could do microsurgery and reattach fingers and whatnot before the antibiotics revolution, but much of it was lost to infection. So I was born just after that. So I was one of the first to have this surgery to give me usable hands. So super lucky in that regard. And, one of my earliest memories was sitting in my father's lap, and he was always bringing home the latest and greatest hand torture device and having me sit in his lap. And because he understood that, it's great that I had fingers, but they were useless, puffy, swollen chunks of pink flesh. They were absolutely useless. So I had to work really hard to develop the dexterity and functionality to achieve independence. So my dad got to work on that with me from a very, very early age. And, today I'm 100% completely independent. I think I achieved that by about 15 years old. It took me years and years and years even to learn how to button my shirt. But when you cross that threshold of getting enough strength and dexterity, everything changed. And so today I'm completely independent.
That's remarkable. And I'm so glad your father would help you with those exercises to practice that manual dexterity. Kip, you've
No,
given me,
let,
go
let
ahead.
me add something to that. The smartest thing my dad did, while he helped me with exercises and whatnot, what my father did, and I hated him for it, for a long time, was incredibly smart man. And when he saw me struggling with something, he always said the same thing. He said, "You'll figure it out." And he turned around and walked away. And, Mark Twain, a quote attributed to Mark Twain was, when I was 15, I was embarrassed by how stupid my father was, and I was amazed at the progress he'd made by the time I was 23. When I was 15, I sure as heck didn't understand why my dad was so cruel. But by the time I got to 23 and was completely functional, suddenly it dawned on me that that was a pretty smart dude because he did not, there was no quarter. My mother was obviously more helpful because she was dealing with it more frequently on a day-to-day basis. But my three big brothers and my father are why I achieved independence because when it came time to do something for me, they just kind of let me do it and I had figured it out on my own.
Thank you for sharing. I really loved hearing that story. Kip, you've done a great job of telling me kind of your background, your disability journey up to this point. So what does a disability-friendly future look like for you?
A disability friendly future to me might be different than a disability friendly future to most, given the current political climate and whatnot. I believe that the social justice movement is kind of headed in the wrong direction. It's headed in an identity politics direction where we're focusing on each open quote, marginalized, close quotes, populations, separate challenges. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of what MLK wrote in 1966 in The Nation, in his book, Why We Can't Wait, I believe is the name of it. He said that the fight for social justice no longer should be identity based in so many words, it should be economically based. And I think that, and it's just math. You know, we don't have the political power, we don't have the means separated to engender the change that we all know is required because we're all going in separate directions. We don't speak with one voice. If we shifted from an identity focus to an economic justice focus, then suddenly we all have commonalities instead of differences. So that's my take on it. A disability friendly future is one where we can all get health care, where, persons with disabilities aren't paid not to work. By far, persons with disabilities globally, universally, are the single most marginalized population on planet Earth. It's not even close. And I don't believe we're going to get to the point where we can mitigate or ameliorate that circumstance until we stop talking about our separate issues and join together in pursuit of common aims.
Thank you, Kip. I really respect that. I tend to also think that even from different marginalized groups have similar goals. So that collaboration and that unity is serving us really well when it's possible.
Yeah, it's just math. You start winning elections and getting what you want when you join forces and go after common aims. And I believe
Absolutely.
that that's really important. On a more personal level, I don't, I wasn't raised in a house where my parents talked about this. I showed up my first day at school and the principal said, "Kids who look like you don't go to school here," and he sent me home. Um, I've been asked to leave public places. I can't go anywhere without dealing with the noise associated with this. And understand that none of that is complaint. I don't complain because I have nothing to complain about. I was raised to believe that ability is on a continuum. And every one of us is somewhere on that continuum. And, really simply, I don't talk about it. I don't complain because, as I said, I'm very happy with my life. Lead a meaningful, fulfilling life. And I'm an inveterate optimist. And the simple fact is, if this means a whole lot to you, chances are you're never going to mean a whole lot to me. And that's not because I don't like you. It's because you self-identify as somebody who is ruminating over body parts, and there's more to life than that. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Great minds speak about ideas, average minds speak about events, and small minds speak about people." Well, you want to talk about body parts, man, I'm out, right? Because that doesn't pull my oar. So anyway, that's my disability. That's my ideal disability future where I just can go about my life and talk about ideas and engage in what I want to engage in without this being an issue anywhere.
I really love this independence that you've got and that you showcase in your answers. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Of course. So we talk about shifting the disability advocacy fight from identity basis to an economic basis. And through that, we think that we can achieve things like healthcare and more goals that our movement has been pursuing for ages.
Yes.
How do we get to that disability friendly future, Kip? What's our strategy? What do you think?
Well, my strategy since I graduated law school and got engaged in disability advocacy has been to politely ask and then take more aggressive action when necessary. Um, that's not much fun. you know. But sometimes, it is what it is. Sometimes you have to go that route. As far as the future goes, it's extremely difficult for the whole DEI social justice movement is so enamored with identity politics right now. It's all consuming. We're in a very, very difficult spot. And I believe that all I can do is continue my advocacy, but I think the most important part for everybody is just to show up and represent. Disability is unquestionably the single most harmful stigma there is. And according to the stereotype content model, I believe, regardless of socioeconomic status, persons with disabilities are regarded as warm but incompetent. I don't believe any other marginalized identity holds that stereotype. That is the worst stereotype imaginable. Well, so we're combating identity politics and exclusion, if you will, from the social justice movement in large measure. We're also combating a significant stereotype. Those two things work together, obviously. I think what we have to do on an individual level is decide what path you want. Either you're for the individual or you're for the collective. And as an individual, show up the best you can and represent. And that's what I do. I get asked what happened to you more often than I'm asked my name. It's nonstop. Every time I walk out the front door, this is an issue for everybody I meet for the first time. And all I can do in response to that is do my dead level best to represent and show that the stigma uh, is false. And it's going to take a long, 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 long time to get there. But for me, that's the path. As little runway as I have left in this life, that's my strategy now.
I think that's remarkable. And my hat is off to you, if I ever wore a hat, for the work that you've done. I really appreciate that. Thank
Well, thank
you.
you. Thank
Of
you, Nico. I
course.
appreciate the opportunity.
As we close our time together today, I want to give you a chance that you and I, as disabled people, rarely get. That's a chance to brag about yourself, promote something cool you've got coming up, or maybe something you've recently accomplished. If you want people to find you online, where can we do that? This is just your chance to be your own cheerleader. So let's hear it.
Thank you. Well, my name is Kip. That's Kip Roth, Roth. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under my own name. Um, I'm a public speaker. It's my passion. I want to do more of that than anything else at this point because it was about 10 years ago that my brother said something that nobody in my family had ever said to me. Um, he said, I gave a speech and I didn't want to talk about this. So I gave a speech about goals, and it was really funny because a woman in the front row of the audience, as soon as I was done, I invited questions, and she said, "What happened to you?" And so I knew that that was the first speech I ever gave in a non-work setting, first speech where I could choose the topic. Anyway, I realized in the moment that I didn't really want to spend my time doing that because I've spent my entire life believing that this doesn't matter. Why would I want to talk about it? And my brother pulled me aside and he said something nobody had ever said to me before. He said, you're really selfish. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you have a skill, you have a gift. Um, you get kicked more often than anybody else I've ever seen, and you always get up smiling. And don't you think that other people need to hear how you do that? And suddenly it reframed my whole public speaking experience. It was no longer about me and what I wanted to talk about. It was about the people I was speaking with. And now I share how I learned to handle anything life throws at me and get up smiling every time. And it's not fake, it's not toxic positivity. It's simply how you run your brain. And I really, really enjoy sharing that message. So I appreciate this opportunity to talk about myself, if you will. But I just want people to know that's what I enjoy doing. If you want me to speak at one of your events, please look me up, Kip Roth. And my email is kip@kiproth.com. And thank you, Nico. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. I've had a real joy speaking with you. It was an unexpected pleasure.
It was my
All right,
pleasure too, Nico.
thank you. All right, folks, tune in next time. Remember, this is our disabled future, and we're building it one day at a time together. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Bye.